over 100 free live channels. For Want It Nowers, thousands of free on-demand hits. We stream free for all. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
I'm not demanding, I'm asking nicely. As a kind civilian that also knows how to manipulate cops.
This is 22-year-old Russell Jones. Just hours prior to the filming of this interrogation footage, he was arrested for helping a 15-year-old girl execute the brutal murder of her father.
Let's set our clock, shall we?
In approximately 3 seconds, you will witness an extreme shift in his demeanor.
You're listening in on my conversations, aren't you? Oh. So, we can do this the nice way, or we can do it the hard way and I can release my bipolar. Let's make a deal. Do-do-do-do. 1, that's for the food. 2, I see Ellie and Gavin because they are both under my protection. 3, before you release Ellie to her parents, or parent, do a background check as well as a DNA test, as well as, well, not DNA, a drug test. And if you find out that her parent, her mom, is in fact doing drugs, you are to release her to me. Tell him to release Gavin and Ellie. Thank you. And I know I'm being recorded. You can keep that on there. Unless you're a nice cop, then I take it back. But if you're one of those two-timing, donut-eating piece of crap that don't like rules, a high school bully with a badge, I'm sorry, buddy, but I eat high school bullies for breakfast. So, you want the whole story? Make a deal, or I let out my bipolar. Your choice.
The following footage contains never-before-seen personal accounts of the suspects involved in this crime. Through in-depth interviews, we've obtained rare insight into the minds of 3 criminals who display behavior that is among the most disturbing we have seen yet.
I can still twist your little mind.
Aaron Fryer's murder was reportedly one of the most gruesome homicides Medford police had seen. The investigative team assigned to the case knew there was significant cause for concern just from viewing the crime scene alone. Aaron's 2 youngest daughters, Sierra and Olivia, walked out of their bedroom the morning of October 2nd, 2017, to find the horrifying evidence of the crime. But their father was nowhere to be found. The 2, who were not yet in high school, called their father's girlfriend for help, and it was not long before the police were involved. Only a few hours later, investigators picked up and detained 3 young individuals, walking roadside a short distance from Aaron's abandoned silver Mercury Marquis. His eldest daughter, 15-year-old Ellen Rose Fryer, was part of the trio. Her 19-year-old boyfriend, Gavin Curtis McFarlane, and his longtime friend, 22-year-old Russell Pierce Jones, accompanied her.
What's your first name?
Mike.
Okay. Mike what?
Smith.
Mike Smith? Okay.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like one of those weird names.
Mike Smith does sound like a very common...
Sure it's not Russell?
Well, that is one of the names I know about.
Okay.
I haven't patted him down or anything. Go ahead.
I don't really have any weapons or anything.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a whole lot easier, all right?
Yeah.
Just go ahead and stand here and spread your feet real quick.
I probably would be really stupid saying this,
Uh-huh.
but did you happen to notice my wrists at all?
Your wrists? What about them?
Well,
stick one.
the
Well,
thing
good.
is that I can dislocate my wrist.
Okay, don't do that though, please.
Okay. You seem like a nice one. So
I appreciate it.
I won't make it hard on you.
All right.
I only make it hard on the bad ones.
I actually started my own protection business.
Did you?
Yeah.
What kind of protection?
I know it's kind of risky, but I work with people 20 and younger, legally considered a runaway type of age.
Okay, so you're going to protect like runaways?
They have to run away for some reason.
Yeah. So you provide protection for runaways and get them like a place to live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of places.
Ellen was a sophomore student at South Medford High School, Medford, Oregon, and Gavin was a previous student who had dropped out a quarter before his graduation. Ellen would tell police that she met Gavin walking through South's hallways. According to Ellen, she reached out via Facebook Messenger and started a conversation that would evolve into a forbidden romance. She, only 15, was underage, and Gavin, 19, was her lover. Friends and family were appalled, but no one as much as Ellen's father. Aaron, in addition to Ellen's mother, Maggie, immediately set clear boundaries. She was no longer allowed to see Gavin. Characteristic to many teenagers who do not get their way, Ellen rebelled. She snuck out and lied to see him, secretly maintaining their bond. It was not long before Ellen's lies caught up to her, and Aaron discovered that, instead of staying the night at a friend's as she'd been claiming, she was sleeping over at Gavin's. Aaron, furious, stormed over to Gavin's house, pounded on his door, and threatened him, warning him not to come near his daughter again, or else. It was following this incident that the couple, in addition to Russell, who claimed to own a protection business, developed an insidious plan that reached far beyond sneaking out or running away, as is typical of many teenagers. They began to conspire to murder Ellen's father, who Ellen alleged had abused her. Although they initially intended to execute their plan after the new year, when Ellen would turn 16, Ellen began to claim the abuse was growing worse.
And I was not happy with the text.
And that's the one that talked about the abuse?
Yeah.
Okay.
And further, that she was pregnant with Gavin's child. This spurred a sense of urgency that drove them to act sooner rather than later. On the Saturday preceding the crime, when Ellen was absent attending a high school band event, Gavin and Russell attempted to break into her house through her bedroom window with murder in mind, messaging Ellen all the while. They quickly found that Aaron's girlfriend was asleep in the room and ran off. Although the attempt drew attention and concern, the police were not involved at that point. Aaron would pick his daughter up from the band event, take her and her siblings Halloween shopping, and treat them to Burger King the next day, and return to their home to watch a Sunday night movie. The events that followed the next morning were a tragic contrast to this seemingly wholesome day of family events.
Remember I told you about his home?
He's your childhood sweetheart.
He came here to see me.
Gavin and Russell again arrived outside of Ellen's bedroom window in the early hours of that Monday morning. Ellen prompted Gavin to enter, and he obliged, while Russell remained outside in her yard. Over a period of an hour or so, Gavin and Ellen whimsically discussed their future, full of marriage and lifelong love. But this was only to pass time. They were waiting for Aaron, who rested on the living room couch, to fall asleep. Eventually, they heard snoring, and Gavin began to make his way to the living room. His first attempt failed when he accidentally kicked a trash can. It was still dark. Aaron woke up, Gavin retreated to the bedroom, and Ellen pretended that she had to use the restroom. Oblivious to his impending fate, Aaron purportedly said to Ellen, "Stop scaring me with all these people breaking in lately." When the two heard his snoring once more, Ellen handed Gavin an aluminum baseball bat, something Aaron had kept close by for protection, and told Gavin, "Take him out." After Gavin was finished, he sent Ellen a message informing her that it was done. Russell, who had stood outside with a machete for backup, entered the home at that point to assist with transporting Aaron's body. Russell reported that he was shocked and that he immediately retreated to the bathroom, sickened by the scene of the crime. Aaron's face, as shared by Russell, was scary. Due to the nature of Aaron's fatal injuries, Gavin wrapped a towel around Aaron's head and a blanket around his body. Russell, holding the blanket at Aaron's feet, and Gavin, holding it at his head, carried his body out to Aaron's own car and hoisted him into its trunk. Ellen was the last to re-enter her home. She stole money out of her recently murdered father's wallet, said goodbye to her sisters, who later told police they heard their father say a bad word when they were just waking up for school, and retrieved her dog before leaving. The trio proceeded to drive to Walmart while Aaron's body remained in the trunk. Ellen used the money she had stolen to buy junk food and hair dye. Before leaving, they walked into an SSI building so that Russell, who was on disability for reasons we'll learn later, could retrieve money with Gavin serving as his rep payee. The following eerie footage captures these moments. They dumped Aaron's body off an embankment along the side of a road. Also off the embankment alongside the road, they threw various incriminating pieces of trash and clothing articles. They ditched Aaron's car and walked away with plans of hiding low in an abandoned house and eventually retreating to California.
He dropped his body off on the side of like a pretty well-known road, man. Like some lady was like walking her dog and then found his body.
We interviewed dozens of friends and family who knew these suspects, and we found that almost all of them shared the same sentiment.
I spent like the whole year with her and Dan doing competitions and whatever. Someone pulled me aside, was like, "Did you hear what happened with Ellie Fryer?" And I was like, "No, I haven't heard anything." And literally a week or two previously, I had spoken to her and been around her.
It shocked me. It was a shock.
It was a little bit shattering. It was a murder, and a really kind of mysterious and gruesome one. And I don't think anybody was expecting that.
All signs aside, no one expected that this would happen.
Think about this. Your daughter's 15, 16, and she's with a grown-ass man doing drugs. I would tell him never talk to my daughter again. And it's like some Romeo and Juliet type. You know what I mean? They're not supposed to be together, but they want to be together.
Romeo and Juliet laws could be applied there because of the 3-year age difference.
What is the Romeo and Juliet law?
So they do something drastic, And unfortunately, it was taking Aaron's life in such a messed up way.
They found like actual evidence of them planning to kill both Ellie's father and the other guy whose name I can't remember, his dad as well.
Who's your father?
Russell Jones Sr.
Oh. What's so bad about him?
His past, as well as my past, growing up with him over 22 years.
I know at the very least, Gavin and Ellie were present when one or both of them beat Ellie's father to death with a baseball bat. They, then took his car with his body, dumped him not even that far away, I don't think, in a ditch. Were caught like not that long after in the car, I think, which is crazy. Medford police at least say it's one of the goriest scenes they've ever seen.
All factors involving these specific 3 individuals culminated with a deadly storm that ultimately led to Aaron's traumatic murder. This is the beginning of an end for Ellen Fryer. She sits stiffly in an uncushioned chair. The walls are bare and narrowly enclosing. Experts designed this room to spur feelings of discomfort, isolation, and unfamiliarity. The interrogation has already begun. Throughout the following interrogations, we will analyze all forms of communication, forensic linguistics, and the complex relationship between suspects' criminal behavior and unique underlying psychology. Only hours previously, Ellen stood outside her home while Gavin murdered her father. After she wrings her hands and cracks her fingers one by one, she stares stoically at the camera. Her behavior is markedly inconsistent with the nature of her recent experiences. An important aspect of reading body language is observing individuals' baseline nonverbal cues, followed by clusters of nonverbal cues, which can occur consecutively or simultaneously. Comparing these in the framework of individual circumstances, including environment, is an additional critical consideration. Upon contemplating Ellen's nonverbal language, also note her paralanguage, or the language that she conveys through vocal tone, pitch, prosody, volume, etc. They may assist law enforcement in building criminal profiles, determining suspects' motivations, or even detecting deception. Ellen shows little to no arousal physiologically, behaviorally, or emotionally. Mark this as our first significant behavioral observation.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing, is that if you met Ellie, she doesn't seem like the type of person that would hurt somebody. She really was a sweet and soft individual. I think that's what was so shaking about it, was that it didn't really make sense to me that someone like Ellie would do that. Didn't seem in her character at all.
She was really sweet. She was a really great person, so I was like, okay, I can be friends with this person.
She just seemed like a normal 15-year-old girl.
Many classmates knew Ellen as the girl who always raised her hand in class. She was accounted as intelligent, polite, and kind. But something that few could later explain lied dormant in Ellen, hiding amidst high school band trips, homecoming dances, and AP classes. Here, that something sits patiently and composed, waiting for an investigator in an empty interrogation room. The following interrogations have been analyzed by a qualified team, including 2 licensed attorneys, one being a former criminal prosecutor and a psychologist trainee.
Hi. Hello. Are you Ellie? No. What's your name?
have the right to remain silent.
The investigative team on this case may have selected this specific investigator, Detective Stephanie Smith, to conduct Ellen's interrogation for tactical reasons. Police psychology experts outline that investigators with traits similar to suspects are more likely to succeed in building rapport and facilitating open, honest communication. This concept applies to the broader field of psychology as well. It may be used as a vehicle of manipulation to appear more likable, otherwise termed the liking similarity effect. Ellen is more likely to respond positively to a female who speaks softly than a male who speaks gruffly. Ellen immediately displays a high level of resistance. As the interrogation unfolds, Detective Smith will navigate each obstacle to open communication that Ellen throws her way.
Is that what you're choosing to do?
Yes.
Okay. I at least need to know your name, though. You don't want to tell me your name?
Rain.
Rain?
Mark lying as our second notable behavior observation and display of resistance. Ellen's first word is a lie, and she lies about her name. Lying is a common exploitive tool. Compulsive lying or pathological lying is characterized by lying about subjects' surrounding identity as a means of control.
Okay, Rain, well, if you choose that you want to talk, I'm around, okay?
I would like to know why I'm in handcuffs and why I'm detained. I have the right to know.
Okay.
Ellen is angry. This reflects in her expression, which is a significant contrast between her flat disposition minutes previously. Her eyebrows are raised unusually high, and she holds them there as she asks the investigator with a childlike voice in an indignant, defiant tone why she is being detained.
Why am I being detained?
Her eye contact is unfaltering. Advanced situational awareness training would identify this behavioral cluster as indicating a need for dominance.
So we got a call of concern at your house today. Well, first I'm going to tell you all your rights.
My house.
I'm going to tell you all your rights, okay? And then I'm going to explain to you what's going on. And if you choose to talk after that, that's completely up to you.
This is a lesser-known rapport-building tactic that functions by reminding suspects they have some level of autonomy. Ellen appears to grow more receptive.
Okay.
Okay. You have the right to remain silent. So you said you want to remain silent.
Then I would like to know why I'm detained.
Okay. So we got a call of concern at your house today, and your little sisters are pretty scared about what happened there. And so what we're doing is trying to figure out what happened. And the police went to your house, and we're also a little bit worried about what's going on over there.
Detective Smith is vague that law enforcement is worried about what is going on over there, Ellen's house. At this point, she's trying to build rapport. This is a soft and indirect approach. Detective Smith wants Ellen to fill in the gaps.
I haven't been there all night.
Well, there are things that would indicate otherwise.
I gave you guys what you wanted. Normally, it would take about 24 hours to get missing persons report if there wasn't evidence of blood. Then, if the person's missing for a total of 48 hours, hence 48-hour mystery, dumbass, then you do your little search posse. By then, Gavin, me, and her would be in California.
And I'd like to talk to you about that, but with your wishing to remain silent, it's really difficult to kind of get to the bottom of all of that.
Then let's talk.
Okay. So what I want to do is make sure you understand what I told you about what your rights are, because that's super important, okay? So can we go through those one more time?
Yes.
Okay. So you have the right to remain silent. What does that mean to you?
Detective Smith reiterates the Miranda rights and asks Ellen to explain what each right means to make sure there is understanding. States often require this if suspects are 15 years of age or younger.
So this morning, your little sisters ran over to your mom's house and told your mom about something that worried them that they saw in your house, okay? And what that was a large amount of blood. And they described a few things that you had been doing at the house. Kind of the way you said goodbye, and that it worried them because they weren't sure if they were going to see you again, and they love you. And that really worried them a lot about where you were going and why you were leaving so quick, because they care about you and they love you.
She frames the story from Ellen's sister's perspective, describing how scared they were to appeal to Ellen's humanity, but Ellen seems relatively unaffected.
You know, do you love your sisters?
Yes.
And you care about kind of how they feel about you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Anybody would. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of that's what we need to hash out, you know? What did your sisters see? Why are they worried?
Yeah, what did they see?
That's what I'm going to ask you.
To be honest, I don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen becomes abruptly animated. She raises her eyebrows sharply, and they linger there. Something about the expression seems off. It doesn't reach the rest of her face, indicating chirality, or match her verbal expression. This abnormal behavior further supports that Ellen struggles with issues of affect or apathy. Ellen's expression, whatever it is, does not appear normal. Ellen's ex-best friend, Jillian McFeeters, commented on Ellen's mental health to investigators, stating that Ellen had displayed signs of bipolar disorder.
The switch would go off sometimes, and I mean, it was not very long. It was just kind of a woo, and then it was gone, but...
This is a critical piece of information confirmed by someone who knew Ellen best. Ellen's mood fluctuations indicate that she suffers from heightened emotional reactivity and sensitivity in response to triggering stimuli. This contrasts with mood swings typical of bipolar disorder, which are not as transient.
You said that there was a large amount of blood. Is everybody okay?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you go to school?
No.
No. What's the last grade you completed?
12th.
You completed 12th grade?
Detective Smith begins to ask background questions to establish Ellen's behavioral baseline, or the behavior she normally displays when answering fact-based questions. Later in the interrogation, when she poses questions relevant to the crime, she will look for behaviors that diverge from Ellen's behavioral baseline when Ellen responds. We will expand on the formal technique of this concept later in the interrogations.
How old are you?
18.
Okay. All right. Where did you go to school?
South Medford High School.
When did you graduate?
Last year. Class of 2017. This year, sorry. Class of 2017. I graduated with an honors diploma.
That's exciting.
As we know, Ellen is lying when she answers most of these questions. Because we know she's lying, we can see the way Ellen expresses herself non-verbally when she lies based on facts. 1. Ellen's tone drops and flattens, a notable deviation in her paralanguage.
Do you go to school?
No.
No. What's the last grade you completed?
12th.
2. Her eyebrows raise. 3. This is a cluster of non-verbal indicators. Ellen looks up and to the right. She smiles, laughs as she answers, and then moves her hands apart.
When did you graduate?
Last year.
4. We can see another cluster when she corrects her lie with another lie. This time we can tell she's more flustered. She scrunches her face to the point that she closes her eyes. She false starts. We see her eyebrows drop dramatically. She rapidly shakes her head back and forth, and finally, she aggressively flicks her hair out of her face and tilts her head back. 5. Last, we see another eyebrow raise.
What kind of classes did you take?
AP.
AP what?
AP American Studies, AP Human Geography, AP Psychology, AP Biology.
Goodness.
Pretty much everything I could take.
Yeah. And I know you live with your sisters, because I know somebody else has talked with them today. I didn't talk to them. And who else do you live with?
Just them.
Ellen responds, just them, and she sounds more emotionally expressive. She may have a soft spot for her sisters. The investigator seems to think so, as she often includes them in her questioning.
And my mother.
Okay. Where do you live?
In the area. I don't know the exact address.
So you live with your sisters and your mom, and you graduated last year. Okay. And you were walking down the street, it sounds like, today?
Mhm.
Who were you with?
I was with my friends.
Okay. And I wasn't there, so I really don't know.
Yeah.
Who are your friends?
The 2 males that have also been detained.
Okay. Who are they to you?
They're friends.
Okay. What are their names?
I'm not going to give their names.
Unless I'm there, she only trusts me as a lawyer.
Okay. So what have you been up to today?
I haven't been home, and now I'm really concerned about what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen puts up her defenses, In a setting outside of an interrogation, defensiveness naturally elicits a negative response from the listener. Detective Smith is trained to employ the resistance countering technique, reframing. In this instance, she utilizes reframing to refocus Ellen's attention on something more positive. Holding positivity assists with resetting the flow of conversation, prevents defensiveness from building, and increases efficient information gathering. This tactic draws from the field of positive psychology, which arose from the idea that reorienting focus and reframing perspectives away from negativity results in greater life equilibrium.
Where were you?
Out.
Like out where?
Just out and about. Couldn't sleep.
When Ellen lied about graduating from South Medford High School,
I graduated with an honors diploma.
She stated that she had graduated with an honors diploma, an identity lie. This is unnecessary detail. In contrast, her responses here are short and vague.
Like out where?
Just out and about.
She's unable to provide any detail. An investigative team will analyze amounts of detail and specificity in the context of what suspects say. They might note that Ellen was overly specific when she provided detail when Detective Smith didn't prompt her to, honors diploma. They might also note that Ellen was overly vague when the investigator prompted her to be specific, her actions. Both warrant attention in an interrogative environment.
Where's the last place you slept?
At the house.
At your mom's house?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've talked to your mom. You know that?
Mm-hmm.
She's super worried about you. She's so worried about you.
Detective Smith shares that she knows Ellen is lying, but follows with an empathy statement. There is no perceptible response from Ellen, but it's clear Detective Smith is still trying to earn Ellen's trust and break the ice. This is an attempt to make an emotional connection, but Ellen holds steadfast, maintaining her resistance.
I would actually like to speak truth today. Okay? I think that your mom is, it's been a long time since I've seen a parent like your mom was today. She was on her knees on the ground, sobbing, because that's how worried she is about you. So I do know that that's not where you spent last night. So where'd you spend last night?
I didn't sleep last night.
So where's the last place you slept?
My mother and my father's house.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've talked to your mom, and so I know that you hadn't been staying there.
Right, it's my father's weekend. I go back and forth, though, because my father is a little bit abusive.
Okay.
Ellen mentioned her father's abusive behavior relatively out of context. Her parents shared joint custody, which explains why she went back and forth between their houses. Further, her response bared no relevance to the question. Consider that Ellen conspired to kill her father and very recently encouraged and stood by as her boyfriend murdered him, lifted his body into the trunk of her father's car, and threw it over an embankment. Her statement regarding her father's abusive behavior extends beyond a lack of remorse, resembling something more like revenge. When investigators spoke to Ellen's old friends, they shared that she had been consistently confiding in them about the abuse.
I know that he was kind of rough on her, and she said that he would, emotionally abusive and physically abusive, but I'm not sure how true that is.
What she would bring up is things weren't they were not good at her household. She felt her dad wanted to kill her. He started getting abusive. He started mistreating her sisters and her.
When the Medford PD posted details surrounding the crime and suspects on their Facebook timeline, there was an outpouring of mourning and kind words for Aaron. Many comments portrayed Aaron as the opposite of abusive, stating, Aaron cared more about his girls than anything. Members of the Fryer family and the Medford community were shocked.
So what's the last house you left from?
My father's house.
Okay. And when did you leave there?
About noon.
Okay. And then where'd you go?
Just wherever I felt like going. I just went for a walk. And I didn't stop walking.
So today is Monday, and it is 11:30.
Okay, so I've been awake for almost 24 hours.
So you left at noon. What day?
Sunday.
Okay.
Yesterday.
And what was going on before you left the house?
Detective Smith is attempting to establish timelines, but this proves difficult due to Ellen's continued lying and evasion.
My father was very upset about something.
What was he upset about?
I can't recall. He has very violent outbursts.
Okay.
My dog was hit by a car because he smashed a glass table onto my dog, and the gate was open, so my dog ran outside and he got hit by a car.
My goodness, when did that happen?
A couple of weeks ago.
Okay. So what was going on yesterday to make you leave?
Just didn't really like the environment. I just didn't like the vibe.
Okay. So who was home when you left?
My sisters and my dad.
Okay.
Where's my dad now?
Ellen attempts to act as though she's concerned about her father, but she fails badly. Consider which behavioral cues indicate deception and post the timestamps in the comments.
I don't know. So you leave. What door did you leave out of?
The front door.
Okay. And did you tell anybody you were leaving?
No.
And then where'd you go?
Just turn here, turn there. Just kind of wandering around town.
Ellen describes walking and seeing the nearby market, though she says her memory is fuzzy.
My memory is pretty fuzzy, though.
Is it?
And she claims she doesn't remember much else.
And then what else did you see?
Nature.
Mm-hmm.
Preceding interrogation, investigators may engage in an exercise termed perspective taking. They place themselves in the suspect's shoes. Suspects will often prepare themselves to answer questions that are central to the crime they committed. By viewing the situation from suspects' perspectives, investigators are more likely to determine what questions suspects might expect or not expect. Investigators will then begin the interrogation by asking anticipated questions to establish a behavioral baseline and follow by asking unanticipated questions. This allows investigators to make a comparison between baseline responses and responses that suspects provide when caught off guard.
Well, at some point you must have met up with some friends.
Yeah, I ran into them.
Where were you when you saw them?
Can't remember.
Okay. So I feel a little bit, tiny bit like we might just be like playing cat and mouse and going back and forth. Okay.
In addition to displaying high levels of resistance, Ellen pushes back at the investigator. She exhibits prolonged eye contact. This is a confrontational behavior indicating aggressiveness. She will continue to do this periodically throughout the interrogation.
Your sisters have actually been already talked to by somebody, and they're pretty good on their times when they saw you because they were getting up and alarms were set and looking at tablets and things like that.
Okay.
And so, you know, I just want to have an honest conversation with you. I think that your sisters are beyond scared, beyond worried. Okay? Like, for instance, the dog. Where's the dog?
Where is my dog?
What's its name? Squeakerbeak or something?
Sparklebeak.
Sparklebeak.
Where is he?
You tell me.
Where's my dog?
I don't know. Where is Sparklebeak?
I don't know.
Okay, well, for me to have an answer about where Sparklebeak is, I don't, because you're actually the one that took Sparklebeak.
I took him for a walk around the block and then I dropped him back off.
No, Sparklebeak is not anywhere to be found. Your sisters remember you taking... Your sisters actually remember you taking him this morning and walking out the door with Sparklebeak. I think only you know the answer to that.
No, I don't.
It would be nice to be able to at least let Sierra and Olivia know.
I don't know.
Okay. Do you have a boyfriend?
My parents made us break up.
Oh, they did? Tell me about that.
They just didn't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Note that Detective Smith is skilled at asking very open-ended questions to entice Ellen to speak. Open-ended questions encourage narratives that are rich in detail and allow investigators to collect further information and insight related to the case.
How'd you meet him?
School.
At South? Okay. And so you've been out of school for a bit?
Mm-hmm.
But your parents didn't like him?
Yeah.
How come they didn't like him?
I don't know.
Well, you must have had some kind of conversation about why your parents don't like your boyfriend.
They're just like, we don't like this guy, get rid of him.
So what did you do?
I ended it.
What was that boyfriend's name?
Gavin.
Justin.
What's his last name?
Can't remember. I wasn't dating him for very long. Maybe 2 weeks.
You don't know your boyfriend of 2 weeks' last name?
No.
We could find him in a yearbook, though.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think? Okay. You didn't have any other boyfriend?
No.
Every detail holds the potential to be significant. The nonverbal indicator that follows is very subtle, almost unnoticeable.
I've had a few, weak relationships, but I don't really consider those to be real.
Everything is noteworthy when it comes to body language analysis. Note that Ellen displays asymmetrical eye blinking and has done so several times throughout the interrogation up to this point. As part of a standard neurological examination, practitioners document asymmetrical facial movement, including eye blinking as well as out-of-the-ordinary ocular movement. Blinking is controlled by the nervous system, specifically through voluntary neural control in the autonomic nervous system. This could be a sign of a neurological, neuropsychological, or psychological issue, as well as medication or drug use. Overtiredness may also cause asymmetrical eye blinking, and Ellen has purportedly been awake for approximately 24 hours or more. Although overtiredness is a likely cause, we must also note that Ellen displays other abnormal eye movements at different points during the interrogation, as well as significantly and consistently odd behavior. We can only speculate what exactly this may be, but we do know there is a strong possibility that each time Ellen does this, she is experiencing some form of abnormal brain activity.
Tell me about the boyfriend you had that your dad thought was too old for you.
No. Oh yeah, that's another situation. My dad's just flat out, I don't like this guy. You need to break up with them. Mm-hmm. And of course, I want my father's wishes for the person I'm seeing.
Who was the guy that was too old for you?
I won't give names.
So what was that circumstance, though? Tell me about that.
My parents are very controlling.
Yeah.
My dad is very abusive.
In what way?
Verbally, emotionally. When I did something that he didn't like, he would grab me right here and he'd pin me against the wall.
And then what would happen?
And then my little sisters would freak out and then he'd stop.
So what was being said or what was being done or what happened to lead up to him putting his hand on you?
I honestly don't know. I'd like to know that myself.
Well, I don't have that answer because you were the one that was there.
Well, like I said, he was drunk, but he's done it sober as well.
But what words were being said?
Like, you. It's very emotionally damaging to hear your father tell you that.
And who all was there when that happened?
Just me, after school.
I thought you said your sisters were there.
Ellen shared only moments ago that her sisters asked him to stop.
So who was home when you left?
My sisters and my dad.
Okay.
Here she explains that she was alone when it happened. Investigators may ask the same questions repeatedly to look for the slightest deviation in suspect stories, particularly to those who display high levels of resistance, like Ellen does. Among the handful of Ellen's friends and acquaintances who spoke to the police and or accepted our invitation to interview, 2 mentioned that Ellen was not always honest.
And she came to school one day with a thing on her leg and said it was from her sisters pushing her. But I don't know, because Ellie has kind of lied to me before, which did hurt.
Jillian McFeeder shared the story of an event that occurred closely preceding Aaron's murder with police. McFeeder stated she decided at that point that she could not forgive Ellen for what she'd done.
She was telling her father that she was at my house when she was actually at her boyfriend's house. So I got a call from Allie that was very frantic saying, I need you to cover for me. So of course I'm thinking, okay, maybe something really bad is going on. So her dad calls me and of course I cover for her, and then he finds out, so he ends up thinking that I was covering for her the entire time when I did not have a clue that she was lying. This one time I thought maybe she's in a dangerous situation. Of course I'm going to help her because she was my best friend and I trusted her, and that was the wrong decision.
Jillian ended her friendship with Ellen after that night and explained to the investigator that she would never trust her ex-best friend again. She knew Ellen was going down a wrong path, and she refused to follow. Here, sitting opposite a trained investigator, Ellen does exactly what cost her Jillian's friendship. She lies.
Yeah, sometimes we go over there by ourselves, and we just want to get away from the other two. Having two younger sisters is stressful. Mm-hmm. Everything's an argument.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
The following questions are generic about whereabouts, the last time she saw her father, and some of her locations over the past 24 hours. Smith is establishing a timeline and frame of reference to compare it to what she knows about Ellen and the crime and what she will learn from Russell's and Gavin's interrogations.
So you were at the park on the other side of the street from Dairy Queen and Blackbird,
Mm-hmm.
and then you saw your friends. And what were your friends doing?
Just hanging out, being goofballs.
Okay.
We know that Ellen and said friends were certainly not just hanging out, being goofballs. Ellen does not appear to be attached to what she says, seeming guiltless. She also comes off as equally removed from impending consequences. As an honors student with stellar grades, Ellen has demonstrated advanced cognitive ability. She would need to possess assets like strong critical thinking skills, working and long-term memory, and at least an average or above IQ to excel as she has. If Ellen is intellectually gifted, we have less of an explanation for why she consistently tells lies that she cannot keep up with. Her approach to evasion and resistance is persistent but not logical, let alone strong, and it brings up a question as to whether Ellen is in a normal, healthy state of mind at the time of this interrogation. A more sinister explanation, Ellen could be doing this intentionally, manipulating the investigator and setting the scene for an insanity defense.
And then what was the conversation?
Hey, what are you doing? Nothing much. What are you doing? Just walking around. You want to hang out? Sure. And we started walking.
And when do you think that was?
I'm not quite sure.
What kind of car does your dad drive?
Grand something?
What color is it?
Like goldish silver.
Okay. When's the last time you were in that car?
When he drove me to the store.
Detective Smith continues to ask questions surrounding details of the crime. She has reasonable suspicion that Ellen was in that car only hours ago with her dead father in the trunk, and she's probing for behavioral discrepancies between answers Ellen provides here and answers Ellen provided earlier when responding to questions unrelated to the crime.
When's the last time you drove that car?
The last time I drove that car? When I parked the car at Walmart.
Okay. And that was, so today's Monday, and you said that was a couple days ago?
Mm-hmm.
What time of day?
We had to get something for dinner, so I'd say about 6 p.m.
And who all went to Walmart?
Just me and my dad.
Okay. What'd you guys get?
Meat.
What kind? Like, what were you guys making?
Oh, I'm vegetarian, so I don't really care.
By the way, did you know sausages are actually the leftover pig guts? And intestines, and the heart, and the liver, pork chops, they're used.
Okay. When's the last time you saw your dad?
Yesterday. I'm too tired to keep talking. I'm really sorry.
You want to take a little break? Okay. Do you want some water or anything?
No, thank you.
You just want to sit here for a few minutes?
I'd like a place to lay down and sleep.
Okay. Well, you just sit tight for a few minutes and we'll try to figure that out, okay? Okay.
It may be difficult to imagine that this mild-mannered 15-year-old girl conspired to kill her father. She has denied knowledge and culpability and claimed abuse. She has likewise lied consistently throughout the interrogation. Many involved in this case seem to want an answer to a question they are hesitant to ask. Was Ellen truly a victim of abuse, or is she lying? We spoke to multiple sources who questioned why Ellen planned and encouraged the murder of her father when other options of escape from the alleged abuse were available to her. They argued that she could have gone to the police, her doctor, the fire station, or other local sources of support. They asked why she'd not chosen to run away. They admitted that they simply couldn't understand what had happened. It's relevant to note that cases of patricide are extremely rare. The circumstances of Aaron's tragic murder were less than 0.002% likely to happen. This innocent, sweet-sounding 15-year-old girl is not a typical young teenager. Her actions were so unusual that even the FBI lacks the words to describe them. Ultimately, though, Ellen didn't swing the baseball bat that killed her father.
Gavin was kind of one of those kids that kind of everybody knew, at least, because he had kind of a very specific outward kind of image that I think he was trying to display, very dark, very kind of shady,
Overall, he really was relatively nice, but just kind of a weird kid.
Gavin was a normal guy. He was really cool.
He's always outgoing. He was an open person. He was like, I don't know, he had friends, but he wasn't like popular, if that makes sense.
It just makes sense that he would do something like that. I mean, he makes threats to kill people. He obviously has the outward image of somebody who, it seems like he was playing an imitation game. It's like the classic, trench coat mafia at your school. Like, it seemed like he wanted to be one of the Columbine shooters.
Many of those who knew Gavin held mixed perceptions of him. From multiple accounts, he seemed to be as much of a friend as he was an enemy, as normal as he was eccentric, and as outgoing as he was reserved. Some said that they noticed him changing over the couple of years leading up to Aaron's murder. Others said that he had always been the way he was. Regardless of whether pre-murder impressions of Gavin were positive or negative, most who responded to our request to interview didn't believe that he could have done what he did.
He was never like that, man. No one would have ever guessed that he would have been a murderer, In social environments, he can be cool. If you're just with him, he'll start saying that makes you think like, oh, you shouldn't say that. Don't say that to anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, keep that one to yourself.
Gavin's behavior and responses to investigators, framed within the context of what family and old friends and acquaintances have said, serve as an opportunity for a unique insight into a crime that no one anticipated. This interrogation occurred less than a day after Gavin bludgeoned Aaron to death, but shortly after he sits, he lightheartedly, mechanically asks,
How's your morning been so far?
Busy.
Busy?
Yeah.
Mark this heavy contrast as our first behavioral observation of Gavin. He displays no visible signs of remorse. Just as we observed in Ellen, Gavin appears unfazed by the seriousness of his past actions and present situation. Whereas Ellen initially presented as emotionally flat, Gavin teeters on the edge of jovial. This is the start of what is known as the Reed technique. The first step in such technique is isolation, which they've done for an extended period. The second step deployed here is called maximization. The Reed technique recommends 5 minutes of isolation, but Gavin has been isolated for hours, with the exception of an officer keeping a close watch on him. Following isolation and maximization, the Reed method incorporates 3 primary categories: fact analysis, investigative interview, and interrogation. As part of the fact analysis step, investigators gather the facts involved in the case and analyze them to search for motive, potential to commit the crime, and likelihood to commit the crime. Law enforcement will use both dependent and independent corroborating evidence in this stage. During this stage, investigators develop a full understanding of the crime scene and other relevant aspects of the crime.
All right. So, me and Jim have spent about 4 hours with, you probably know him as Mike.
Yeah, wow.
And Detective Stephanie Smith has spent about the same amount of time with Ellie. And I just want to throw some things at you. So all I want you to do right now is just listen to me.
Okay.
And let you know what's going on, okay?
Okay.
Step 1. Positive confrontation. At this point, the investigators have acquired enough evidence to reasonably suspect that Gavin committed the crime. As part of positive confrontation, the primary investigator lays it all out on the table, objectively stating the facts. He does this in an intentionally soft, soothing voice to appear non-threatening and to give Gavin a false sense of security.
Mike took us out to East Antelope and pointed out the tarp, and we've We have people out there right now recovering Ellie's dad. He's deceased. Ellie's dad was basically wrapped up in a blanket and a tarp and taken out and dumped.
The investigator opts to use words that are non-accusatory while presenting the evidence. He does not say, "You took his body and dumped it." He says, "His body was taken out and dumped." The latter is passive voice as opposed to active. Controlling suspects' levels of resistance and defensiveness is critical to the success of an interrogation.
We don't know if this is something that's been planned out a long time ahead or if this was just like last night, you guys decide to go over there and get Ellie the hell out of a bad situation.
The investigator implements step 2, theme development here. He frames the crime from a perspective that fulfills Gavin's moral justifications. This is the investigator's moral theme. If Gavin murdered Aaron, he did it to protect Ellen. This will occur and build as the interrogation progresses. The investigators pre-planned this, likely structuring it around information gleaned from other sources like
Gavin was only protecting Ellie.
We will call the investigator's theme development the hero theme.
This isn't a matter of when it happened, where it happened, who was involved. It's more a matter of why this happened and what was going on through all of you guys' minds at the time. We don't take sides in these kind of cases. We're basically truth seekers. We're here to seek the truth as to what happened. And Ellie has been 100% cooperative with us.
Are you Ellie? No.
What's your name?
I have the right to remain silent.
And then how long have you known Ellie?
Ellie, it's been almost a year now, I'd say.
Okay. Boyfriend, girlfriend?
Only about 6 months.
There's some information that Ellie might be pregnant. Has she told you that? Yeah. Okay.
Gavin confirms that he was both dating and sleeping with Ellen. That is, he confirms that he was both dating and sleeping with a minor. It took a handful of seconds for this investigator to prompt Gavin to admit to a statutory offense.
He would like hang around middle schools. When he had turned 18 is when everybody like found out that he was with like a 15-year-old. People were automatically like, okay, bro, like that's not cool. And a lot of people stopped talking to him. And he wanted her at any cost. No one else could have her.
Because Gavin shows little resistance and doesn't reject or deny the investigator's accusations, the investigator can bypass steps 3 and 4 of the Reed interrogation technique, handling denials and overcoming objections. Instead, he jumps straight into step 5 of the Reed technique, procurement and retention of suspects' attention. The investigator must guide Gavin's attention away from the potential repercussions of the crime and back to the main theme. He does this through minimization or through rationalizing that the crime was not that serious of an offense.
You guys are only, 3-4 years apart? A little over 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the investigator's redirection here, Gavin is back in the hero mindset. From Gavin's perspective, investigators are only concerned about Aaron's abuse of his daughter, not his murder, and Gavin has exactly the information they need.
Her dad's an alcoholic, and he goes and she said that he's beaten her and locked her in the bathroom before and stuff.
Has she ever told you that anything in regards to?
That was just recently. That's what set me off. So.
Okay.
This is a turning point. In just over 10 minutes, Gavin has fully bought into the hero theme. The next steps are crucial to the success of the interrogation. They almost have a full confession, but sticking true to the Reed method, the investigator immediately continues as though Gavin merely commented on the state of the weather. The hero approach to theme development was Gavin's Achilles heel, his greatest weakness. His crime was gruesome and ruthless, but he seemed to desire to be a hero as much as he desired to be a villain. Among the dozens of friends and acquaintances we interviewed, only one confirmed a possible explanation as to why this theme worked so well for investigators.
He was very protective of the people he cared about. Actually, how we met, I was bad-mouthing a couple people, not realizing that he was connected to those people. They had pissed me off, and for whatever reason, I just wanted to talk shit, and he gave me a black eye.
Although Jacob laughed it off, the example he gave supports the theory that Gavin possesses a low anger threshold, meaning he's anger-prone. Some might argue that Gavin's actions display extreme loyalty, whereas others might protest that they served as outlets for his aggression.
When did she tell you about that, and what did she tell you?
That was yesterday.
What's your understanding of what he did to Ellie?
he basically like laid next to her naked and started.
And then so you mentioned that kind of set you off, upset you. Obviously, it would upset me too.
This is an empathy statement, something that encourages reciprocity. Establishing reciprocity, in this case emotional reciprocity, in an interrogative setting is a form of persuasion. If the investigator provides a small favor, the suspect may feel a need to return it, thereby lowering resistance. The empathy statement also creates an opportunity for Gavin to elaborate on what he meant when he said he lost it. But the investigator quickly moves on once Gavin responds. Linguistic analysis involves the interpretation of words and phrases in context. So is a transitional expression. The simple linguistic interpretation here is that Gavin wants to move on from this topic of conversation. The investigator intuits this and immediately resumes asking questions along the lines of the hero theme.
And then, so what was the plan going over to Ellie's last night? Was it to pick up her belongings and get her out of that situation?
To pick her up some stuff and get her out of there, yeah.
Okay.
He's held me at gunpoint before. He threatened my life and held me at gunpoint before.
Aaron has over at his house?
And then there was one time he came over banging on my door because he was all mad. I actually called you guys for that because I was like, I didn't want to go out the door, look out the window to see anything because I didn't know if he had a gun or not. But
how long ago was that you called us?
I think it was a month ago.
And then when was the situation where he pointed a gun at you? Where was that? Where did that happen and how long ago was that?
Gavin describes his interactions with Aaron as being characterized by fear. He claims that Aaron threatened him more than once. Beyond Gavin's reports of Aaron's threatening behavior, Ellen claimed to him that Aaron abused her. The fear response is an evolutionary physiological survival mechanism that's triggered in reaction to perceived impending harm. It's otherwise termed the fight or flight response, which includes the following reactions: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. We'll discuss the fight or flight response concerning Gavin as the interrogations progress.
So I went over to his house one time. This was where I knew that he didn't like me or whatever, and I came over and he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And then I'm like, "I was here to say hi to Ellie. She said that I was to come over." He's like, "No." So he grabbed a gun and was like, "Get the fuck out of here. I'm giving you 20 seconds."
Did Ellie witness that?
No. I don't know what caused him to not like me anymore.
Okay.
So he was really chillaxed. I mean, he was, of course, being like a protective dad. He said, "I'll knock out your teeth if you ever hurt my daughter." And I was like, "Yeah, I understand."
Does he drink a lot?
So, yes, he is an alcoholic.
If Aaron suffered from alcoholism, Ellen could have been in a considerably unstable environment. Children of individuals who struggle with alcoholism are more likely to develop mental illness. Moreover, and in reference to Ellen's claims, greater consumption of alcohol relates to greater rates of inappropriate, unwanted advances.
So you get this text yesterday, last night, and when you got over there, what time of the morning do you think it is now that you guys arrive?
It was 2:30 in the morning.
2:30 in the morning? Is when you guys get there? Okay.
Gavin must be in his hero mindset, believing that the investigators view his crime as morally justifiable. Once Gavin is primed to be more receptive, open, and honest, the primary investigator dives into information gathering. Note that the second investigator is present to ensure proper execution of Step 9 of the Reed interrogation technique, converting an oral confession into a written confession. A third party witnesses and writes down suspects' confessions.
Where is she at when you first see her?
She's poking her head out the window, being like, "Hey, come on in."
Out of her bedroom window? Okay. And what do you and RJ do at that point?
At that point, RJ was like, "Okay," and then gas bubble or something.
Okay.
I go in the window, RJ waits outside.
He waits outside,
yeah.
And then do the bags start getting passed out the window?
Yeah.
How many bags do you think she has ready to go at that point when you get there?
Gavin appears calm and collected, unaffected by his present circumstances. However, as the investigator probes more deeply into the specifics of that night, Gavin crosses his arms tightly over his chest. This is a self-pacifying behavior, a self-hug meant to reduce stress and regulate emotions.
When we got there, she had 4 bags. She had a guitar.
The pellet rifle.
The pellet rifle, yeah. And then she had like a makeup kit and then another thing in it.
So now it's you and Ellie in the bedroom, and you mentioned that Dad heard you. Did Dad hear you guys in there? Or did...
Well, he got up and then Ellie was like, oh, I'll just go out and act like I'm going to the bathroom or whatever. Because, I mean, I didn't want this guy to come in and start beating the crap out of me.
So how'd the conversation go between Ellie and her dad at that point when she's saying, I got up and went to go pee?
And he's like, all right, well, stop scaring me with all the people trying to break in lately. And I was like, wait, what? Because that was the first night we had gone. I mean, we went over there last night, but, I mean, we didn't go for it because her dad's girlfriend was there.
Okay.
Saturday night.
So you'd went over there Saturday night to try to get her out of there.
Yeah. I know I'm in serious trouble, aren't I?
Well, we need to figure out what happened. And, you know, there's a lot of things in play here. But so now you've been there about 20 minutes before Ellie interacts with her dad.
His tone is even, and his responses are level, but when Gavin removes his jacket, we can reasonably assume that he is more stressed than he's letting on. Actions like tugging at a shirt collar or removing clothing, as Gavin does here, may be referred to as ventilating behaviors. When circumstances are heating up, humans may lean on these behaviors to cool down.
And I know this is going to be a little bit difficult to talk about, Gavin, but you got to be 100% honest and truthful with this. What happens next?
So then Ellie got out, and they waited in the car, and then...
Ellie went to the car?
Yeah.
Did she go out the window or the front door?
She went out the window.
Okay.
As Gavin answers, he rubs his nose. While nose-touching under high-stress circumstances does not necessarily indicate deception, it does indicate heightened stress. It appears that Gavin's feelings of discomfort are building.
And when you said they waited in the car, are you talking about RJ and her?
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the car is seen on video on a surveillance camera at a neighbor's house, leaving at about 5:50 in the morning. If you're getting into the bedroom at about 2:30, you're talking about 3 hours until you guys leave. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. That entire 3-hour time, what's going on inside the bedroom? I mean, what's the purpose of waiting so long?
We were trying to wait for him to fall asleep again so that we could get out.
Okay.
And then he starts to wake up, and I just acted on instinct, and I don't know what I was doing.
We know that Gavin was aware of what he was doing, but it appears that he displays little to no signs of discomfort or deception in this moment.
And then, I just kept hitting him until he stopped, and I heard, gurgling, and I was like, what's going on? And I'm really sorry.
Next, Gavin does something unexpected.
I know you are, and I know this is difficult. And that's what we're
trying to help. Sorry.
Let me ask you this, Gavin, were you upset because of everything that Ellie had told you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to kill him.
Right, but why not at 4:30 when you know she has the keys, why not just everybody go out the window and leave?
Ellie hates her parents. She doesn't want to go back there again. She wanted him dead, but I didn't want to kill him. And I was like, I'm not going to kill him. She was all like, no, I don't want him around me. I don't want him around my sisters anymore. I mean, so sorry. I'm going to prison for murder, aren't I?
Well, that's what we need to figure out here. We need to figure out what your intent was, and it's important to know.
I'm just trying to protect Ellie.
Okay.
My boss will try it.
So do you think that Ellie could have influenced Gavin?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would never see my nephew acting in that behavior of brutally killing somebody. From my point of view and everybody else, my family, we all agree that Ellie was 100% at fault.
It was not long before Gavin admitted to his role in executing Aaron's murder. As opposed to Ellen, he put up little to no resistance, immediately acknowledging that the events that morning had transgressed and that he had solely swung the bat that killed Aaron. Russell would prove even less resistant uninhibitedly spilling nearly all details involved in the crime. Just as Gavin stated he was doing, Russell insisted that he was protecting Ellen. What we are about to observe is among the most bizarre behavior we have seen in an interrogation up to this point.
Is that a camera right there? I'd
Yep,
rather
camera.
not have a camera aimed at me.
I don't. Well, you can talk to the board, but I think they're required to. So it's nothing.
Like I'm
I mean, heck, I've had a body cam all day. I mean,
Well, yeah, but see, I
my
don't.
friend, we're recorded wherever we go. You know that.
Even the police bathroom?
Seems like it. Probably, yeah. You have a seat, man. That way I can sit down.
Well, you can sit down.
Yeah, well, I'm not allowed to sit unless you're sitting, so that way I can sit. Well,
Russell tries to show dominance and control by stating he doesn't want to be recorded, and then after the officer tells him he can sit down, he replies, "You can sit down." This immediately shows he's trying to display his lack of fear of authority. Of the three who participated in the crime earlier that morning, Russell appears to be the least impacted. While Gavin's behavior evolved from casually polite to distraught, and Ellen's from flat to angry, Russell's is steadily lighthearted and upbeat. His conduct is eccentric, driven by a variety of psychological factors that will break down as his interrogation progresses.
My mom kind of took him under her wing, trying to help him. He mentioned that he's autistic, and so he has trouble finding work. And it wasn't too long before that my youngest son was diagnosed with autism. So that was our kind of like our instant connection. He did a lot of family things with us. He spent Easter with us, has gone to dinners with us. So we're pretty close. I mean, he calls me his sister. He calls my mom.
Really? Yeah. It's soundproof, huh?
it's kind of a nice place.
Yeah, it's probably soundproof
Brand new.
so that people,
Well, people can get loud in holding cells because sometimes we bring like drunks here from driving.
drunks are the worst.
Yeah. Not a big fan of them.
Not a big fan of them. Like, I protect people, like I said.
Russell persistently claims that he owns a protection business. He unshakingly asserts this, and the police don't at any point question it. When individuals are convinced of something untrue despite all evidence indicating otherwise for an extended period, they're said to hold a delusion. Oftentimes, delusions are bizarre, meaning they're highly improbable or not set in reality. E.g., an individual consistently believes that the neighbor reads minds. Other times, delusions are non-bizarre, involving beliefs that are within the realm of possibility, e.g., consistently believing one is being followed. Russell's protection business could be a delusion. While outside of the norm, it could nonetheless be true, qualifying as non-bizarre. We would require additional information, such as input from friends and those Russell claims to protect, to determine this.
But, I try not to resort to violence.
Good.
I always try and talk to the person.
Yeah.
Her father is a drunk,
Uh-huh.
compared to what she's told me. And I've
Okay.
only talked to him over the phone probably once or twice.
Uh-huh.
He seemed really not that good of a father.
Really?
Yeah. He,
Her father?
yeah.
Who is her father's name, you know?
All I know him as
If I know.
is, Aaron. That's all I know. Of course, then again, I know, like, Aaron Martinez, Aaron, her father, but I don't know his last name. And I know Aaron Novi. So.
Okay.
Russell starts rambling, and the investigator allows him to do this. This is a strategy to keep the accused talking so they feel comfortable, and the more comfortable a person feels, the more likely they are to say something incriminating. This is also a way for the officer to build trust.
I met him when I was living in Medford, working at a place called the Purple Parrot. He was trying to find a job so he could find a place to live because he was homeless. He was very sweet, very clean cut, you know, very nice. He's just a savior. That's all he wanted to do was help people. You know, all his life he was let down. He went from foster home to foster home to foster home. So I would let him come in to get warm. And then one day he didn't even have a coat. And it was like 3 degrees. And I go, where are you going? And he says, well, I'm just going to walk around until McDonald's opens. And I'm like, no, you're going to come home with me so you'll be warm. You know, I felt like, you know, enough was enough. You know, this poor kid needs some help, and no one's going to help him.
I think it was like a good 2 years that he was in our lives. Mostly in my mom's life. Like he really did become like a son to her. Anytime he was looking for help or willing to take help, she would help him.
Russell stated previously that he's diagnosed with autism. As a neurodiverse individual, Russell likely struggles with certain aspects of communication. Although he largely displays well-developed social skills, he exhibits circumstantial speech here. The various individuals named Aaron are not directly related to the conversation at hand. We'll continue to observe examples that support this diagnosis, as well as others, throughout the interrogation.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think I've ever met her father before.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met her before.
You don't want to.
I've never met you, and I don't think I've met
He had
other guy
a
either.
hunting rifle. Yeah.
It's a nice one, or?
I've never seen it.
Oh, okay.
I've never met
How'd
her.
you know he had one?
She told me.
Oh, okay.
Because he
like
likes
that,
to
so-
drink a lot.
Oh, okay.
So, and the other night, the reason why I was helping her was because he went into her room and laid next to her.
I don't like where this is going. Really? She tell you that?
Yeah, and that's why I got her out.
Okay.
So, yeah, we went down to the park. We met up there. I told her just like leave everything.
Yeah.
And just like get the hell out of there. Grab like
What
a bag
park?
of clothes. Union, I think.
He says Union is a question, with his voice trailing upward. These are both indications that he may be lying. He hasn't said prior to this, so it's not a normal pattern of his speech, and answering a question with the inflection of a question shows uncertainty in your answer, either because you're lying or aren't confident in the response being correct.
Yeah, but I've always been kind of a protector of people, so.
Okay.
This isn't the first time Russell has claimed to be a protector of people.
He looks out for people, and I think that he takes it a little too far. One of my family members drank a lot, and he wanted to go over and beat him up because he was emotionally abusive to me. I really disagree on what he did, but I think that he had the right intentions. He would always give you a jacket off his back. I mean, he did it in the worst way, but he just cares.
And he also had this grand idea of creating a community for homeless people or just young people that need help, that don't have help. So it's like he was always trying to go out and resource that, like trying to build that up. He still does. He still talks about that. People looked at him like a protector, and he really liked that. It made him feel valued, gave him a sense of purpose, because that was another problem. He didn't really have a sense of purpose. He was just kind of left in the wind.
Unless people piss me off, then they become the, not really target in a bad way.
Yeah.
Just like target as in like someone that needs a firm talking to.
Okay.
Or a slap across the face, depending on the situation.
How much do they pay you for that? Have you been paid yet, or?
Not financially.
No.
Because I can't legally work with the SSI.
Yeah.
Because I can only work under the table jobs, and those don't really.
How much SSI do you get?
$7.35 plus a $22 check.
Net a month?
Yeah.
Russell begins giving the officer details of his family and personal life, which is a good indication he's developed trust with him. The investigators enter the room, and the officer asks one of them to step out.
Can I talk to you for just a quick minute? Hey, take care, buddy.
You too.
Likely to brief him on what they discuss that is relevant to the case, to see if he is consistent, and possibly to also let him know a little about his personality. So the investigator knows the best approach and techniques to deploy in getting what he needs from the interrogation.
Before we get too wrapped up in this thing, I just got here to work.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to explain why we're here today for you and just have
I don't even know why I'm here.
Okay, I'm going to have you just sit and listen to what the story is. And,
okay. Yeah, I have nothing to hide. So.
Okay, good. You were very cooperative with this on the last